Hey guys, KF7IJZ here, and today the format's a little bit different. We are going to be doing an audio interview with Cale Nelson, K4CDN of the FoTime Amateur Radio Podcast. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, I've come up with something clever to do to put images in the background or something. But overall, it's important that we get this out there. So it was about, I'm thinking 5 months ago, I got a phone call from a good friend of mine, Gerald, KF5JNU, and he said, hey, I want you to talk to a buddy of mine down in South Carolina who's trying to put together a podcast. And things kept getting in the way. It took us a little while to connect, but I got a phone call one evening from Cale, K4CDN, who had a vision. And his vision was to do an amateur radio podcast for folks who are interested in modern technology, interested in portable operations, emergency communications, a little bit of prepping, a little bit of being prepared and being able to serve your community, and a lot of other topics that he just wasn't seeing discussed in other common ham radio outlets. And so today with me, I have Cale, K4CDN, who has been gracious enough to allow me to come along on this journey with him for a few episodes. And Cale is the owner, proprietor, and operator of AmateurRadio15.com, the home of the FoTime Amateur Radio Podcast, also known as the Other Ham Radio Podcast. Cale, welcome.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me. And I'm still grinning from all of those nice words you said about me.
Well, buddy, you've certainly earned them. So as it stands, we're recording right now. Let's see, we just got episode 5 live last week, right?
Right, yep. Episode 6 is in post-production now, so I don't really know when we'll hear this on the air or on video, but we're at least to 6, approaching number 7.
And so, you know, let's start a little bit. We'll come back to episodes, but let's, first of all, Cale, tell us a little bit about you and your background with amateur radio.
Well, I've been a nerd my whole life, and I think I've said that on the air a couple of times, or on the podcast, which I call the air because I'm an old radio guy. But I've been into radio my whole life, and I guess it all got started when my grandfather had a CB radio that he used deer hunting with, and he had a spare, and he gave it to me, but it wouldn't work because you couldn't plug it into the wall. So I went out to my dad's Murray riding lawnmower and took the battery out because I knew that it had some power source, and I'd ask enough questions to have an idea of what was going on. So first grade, I've got a Johnson 23-channel blackface radio, and I take my dad's, actually it was a Johnson, not a blackface, it was a Messenger, sorry. Anyway, I got the battery out of the lawnmower, took it in the house, put a magnetic antenna on the top of the roof, and I'm talking to the truckers at the TA that's about 7 or 8 miles away from the house when my dad came looking for the ignition source for his lawnmower. And that's my earliest taste in of kind of doing my own thing. When I was a really small kid, I lived beside a truck driver, and he had a CB in his truck, of course, and he would let me talk on that. And it's just been an affinity of mine for years. And my wife knew that going into all this because she knew me with the CB radios, she knew me with the Nextels and whatnot. But amateur radio always seemed kind of like it was too much for me. It was a step that I wasn't willing to take. And in junior high school, I was, of course, a band nerd, and I played tenor saxophone just like my dad. And as I got a little older, I got a job at a Radio Shack, as you can imagine most radio guys would love to work at. And this was back in the Shack days when it was a good place to be and a good place to work. And there were amateurs in and out of there all the time. And in every one of them, I guess that through conversation or whatever, they always asked me, man, you need to get your license. You need to start studying. You need to learn Morse code and this thing. And I was chasing women and subwoofers, you know what I'm saying? So I still had the CB in the truck, and I'm not ashamed of that. It was what got me to where I'm at today, but I was more interested in women and loud stereos. But as time went on, I finally bought a study guide after spending some time listening to shortwave radio. I bought a study guide, and it was a novice or a no-code tech study guide from Radio Shack. And I went through it, and I never did anything. And then that series of questions expired, so I bought another one. Long story short is I ordered one about 3 or 4 years ago, and it came in the mail. My wife just rolled her eyes when I opened it. She said, "You're never going to take the test. There's no reason for you to have bought that book again." And that's really all it took. I was by then the father of, I think, 4 kids at the time. and I had pretty much quit chasing women in loud stereos and gotten over my Harley Davidson affliction and all of those things. So I was looking for something to do. And we had moved out of the city into the country, and I had plenty of room to put stuff up, and I knew what was kind of expected. So I began studying, and just within a few weeks, I took the test and passed, and here I am today, and can just keep going on. But it's been quite a journey. To go back to the Radio Shack days, it was so weird. I wish I knew who this guy was, and I don't even know if he's still living, because he was a pretty old dude back then. But there was a guy that came in all the time to our Radio Shack, and he had this weirdest accent, you know. Who am I to speak of one with an accent? But he came in. He was always one of the first days I worked. He came in, and he was looking for some aluminum wire, and for the life of me, I had no idea what he was saying. So he actually had to show me in the store what he was looking for, because I didn't know that that's how you pronounced aluminum anywhere other than South Carolina. We say aluminum. And he was a big amateur operator, and I wish I knew the gentleman's call, because through conversation, he really spurred some great interest for me.
Well, very good. It's interesting how, you know, sometimes as folks come into the hobby, you find that there were lots of opportunities for it to kind of creep into your life here and there along the way. So, you know, you went through all that, you gave up the women, the motorcycles, the loud stereos, and you picked up a microphone and a transceiver and some wire. So what kind of operating do you enjoy doing mostly? Well,
I don't want to say I enjoy it the most, but the most operating I do is on our 2-meter repeater locally. And reason being is I live way out in the country, and I have my shack in my barn, a real barn, like on a farm barn. That's where my shack is. And it's about 75 to 100 yards away from the house. So to come up here and operate, it takes a little doing. You know, you got to get everybody adjusted in the house, and mom's got to be happy, and the kids are fed for the 17th time today, and no laundry has to be folded, you know, those things. And you can just kind of sneak up, and you get like 30 minutes at a time. And I know I've got some friends here, some Elmers, that just can't believe that that's how my hobby is, but it's the truth. HF is by far my most favorite way to operate. 20 meters is my preferred band, and I really enjoy DX on 20. I also enjoy some digital modes when I have a computer that will agree with me and allow me to do that. But Olivia is my choice for digital. I enjoy PSK31 as well, but I like Olivia because that's what a lot of my buddies use. But I really dig 20, and I've had contacts all the way up and all the way down. 10 meters is fun in the truck when it's a contest day, and not a lot of fun any other time for me personally, mainly because the kids are too loud. But past that, I really enjoy. But I know a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people online, and in the podcast stuff here, about their local clubs. And, you know, they have a really bad local club where they're located, and I feel so sorry for folks like that, because, and my local guys probably aren't even listening to this, but we have such a great group here locally in the upstate of South Carolina that I feel bad for folks who don't have that type of ham community where they're at. We have a tremendous repeater. It's got just massive coverage for our, you know, area of operations here. And we all get along and have a lot of fun together. So I said a lot to just say HF and 20 meters.
No, and that's good. I mean, having a good club is certainly a good source of inspiration, a good source of ideas, techniques, and a good place for fellowship and sharing knowledge and operating with other folks that share an interest in the hobby. So you operate, you have a shack. I don't even have a shack. My shack fits in a bag, as most of you guys have seen. I have to go out into the country somewhere in order to play radio, because there's a 40 over noise floor here where I live in my apartment. So you have this stuff, you have an interest in amateur radio, you've got a great club, you have a wife who sometimes lets you play with your radios. So tell us, how did the FoTime podcast kind of come about? How'd you make the jump from getting on the air and talking to folks on 20 to getting on the internet and talking to folks?
Wow, that's a good question, Jeremy. It goes back again to my childhood. I've just always loved radio, and even what minuscule understanding I have of it, it still just enamors me. And that sounds so ridiculously retarded to my wife and friends that I have who are not in amateur radio, but it's just really cool to me to know that I've got a wire out here that's about 8 feet above the ground, at 70 some odd feet long, and I've talked to a dude in Japan with it. I mean, that just blows my mind. Because it's not supposed to work, but it did at least once. What got me into amateur radio, we've talked about. What got me into FoTime podcast was I've always been into music as well, which is, you know, the other side of radio is music. And I had an opportunity to join a local low-power, non-commercial FM radio station as they were getting off the ground just a few years ago. Well, it's over 10 years ago now. But anyway, I came in kind of on the bottom floor, and I was doing some shows with them, and I was doing some airtime. And I got around to being the program director of the station. I was programming the station, picking and choosing the music and making the friends in the industry. Absolutely just wholeheartedly loved it, but it was just destroying my time at home, even with it being almost like a non-paid volunteer kind of gig. My heart was in it, and when your heart is in something, it kind of takes your focus away from the things that are really important, like your wife and kids. But I worked in non-commercial radio, and loved being behind the microphone, loved being able to talk to people, loved being able to share myself with other people. So when I backed off of the radio station, I resigned from the station completely just to focus more on home and our kids' education. I was good for about a year and a half, and I started getting real antsy and wanted something to do. I wanted to be heard again, and that may sound conceited, or you take it for whatever it's worth to you, but I felt like I still had something to say. So I got to kicking around, you know, what am I going to do? I'd even started talking about doing a Part 15 AM station here at the house, just to like talk to myself on the radio down at the house from the barn. But that just goes to show you the level of, you know, when you want to say something, you're looking for an avenue. So I started, for some reason, I've always enjoyed Ken Blanchard and Blanchard Media Group, and would listen to Ken's podcast. And somehow I was Googling him one day and stumbled over this guy named Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com. And Dave, he's like a podcast coach. He does all these videos that I don't get to watch down here on my internet connection, but he does a lot of great stuff. He does podcasts all the time about podcasting. And I was like, wait a minute, I could do that. Now, what am I going to do it on? I've got a voice, I want to talk. And I was like, heck, man, you know, I know that there's a couple of ham radio podcasts out there, but I've never listened to them. And there's no offense to any of the other guys. I've never listened to them. So with that, I said, well, why don't you just start your own? And it was going to kind of be just a small thing for a limited number of people to kind of, you know, rib each other throughout the week with. But some encouragement from guys like Gerald and Greg and Paul. They were all pushing me, man, this could be bigger than just us. Why don't you go and make it for everybody in the amateur community, which I'm really thankful that they did, because it's been accepted really well. And that's where FoTime came from. I had already started working on the artwork. I was paying someone to do the artwork for the show, and had already settled on the URL and the name of the program. And then all this encouragement came to grow it larger, and I could not back off of what I had already done, because I'd already got, you know, ready to say it. So I kept it FoTime. I've kept it amateurradio15.com, and that's how the podcast came. I just wanted something to say and somebody to say it to, and I've said from the beginning, episode 1, the first thing I said is, I'm not the smartest guy in ham radio. I'm not the brightest bulb in the box. I don't intend to be. I don't want you to think I'm trying to be, but I want to bring the listener, I want to connect them with the people that are. And if they're not the smartest people, at least they've got a lot of great experience that they can share with someone else as well. So I'm just it's like a morning show. You know, you got a host of the program, and you got these really smart, beautiful people who come in and talk about smart, beautiful things. Well, we're ham nerds, so we're not really beautiful, but we got the smart stuff. So, you know, I'm here to make people grin and make others look really good, and to share their experiences with the hobby that I've loved for years without even being involved. You know, to share that hobby, especially with new folks who are coming in who really don't know which way to go. And not that I'm like trying to direct traffic. I just want to let everybody know the different avenues that are available to you and how broad this hobby is. It's huge. It's so much bigger than just, you know, an old man pecking around on a straight key, or a guy talking to his buddies across the state, or making long-distance contacts. I mean, there's thousands of things to do in between all of that, and that's what I hope to be able to approach you with the show.
Well, very good. And again, folks, the website is Amateur Radio 15, and that's Amateur Radio, all one word, 15.com, home of the FoTime Amateur Radio podcast. I'm here speaking with Cale Nelson, K4CDN, the founder of the FoTime Amateur Radio podcast. And, Cale, I certainly appreciate the opportunity for giving me a chance to participate with you and help do some interviews. And I know that it's something that has been really rewarding to spend my time towards, and it's been really cool to see, things build. So, that's something else. We've got 5 episodes now, right? Five episodes total. Number 6 is coming out.
Complete.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So talk about, you said it's kind of been bigger than you thought it would be. Can you talk a little bit about the response and, and how big has it gotten so far?
Well, I launched with 2 episodes. I really wanted to launch with 3, and it didn't happen. And the first day we had 100 downloads, and I was just like, wow, 100 downloads, 100 people have listened. And then I thought, well, if they downloaded both of them, that was 50 folks. But still, the 50 people listening to somebody like me from South Carolina with a very limited knowledge of what they're talking about didn't sound too bad. And it spiked, and then it crashed, and then we released episode number 3, and it spiked again, and then it crashed. And when I say crashed, I mean it went from, I think the lowest day we've had is maybe 9 downloads, and that was really early on. But I think with our last episode, we had 201 downloads the first day that it launched, and that was pretty cool. I don't know what these other guys are getting. I know that in the podcasting community, I get 1,000 downloads a day or something. I'm not even trying to put myself there. I know that we're a small niche community, and I know that even inside that small niche community, I'm speaking to an even smaller group of people, because here I am, trying to talk to the younger generation, trying to talk to the new guy, and there's folks that have been around forever. The majority of the 700,000 amateur operators, around here are older than me. So I'm looking to talk to me. I'm looking to talk to you, the younger guy. And so beyond that, let's see, we've almost got 3,000 downloads total, which is really exciting to me. With 5 episodes out there, that's at least, if you do averages, 600 people have listened. We're making a little headway on Facebook and a little headway on Twitter, but not a lot. Facebook is I'm not a Facebook guy. I'm not trying to be a Facebook guy, but I know it's a good way to promote your product. So if you're listening and you're on Facebook and you haven't friended me or liked me yet, please go do that, and tell your amateur buddies to do it as well, so that we can continue to get the word out. One cool thing I will share with you, Jeremy, real quick, is last week I got an email. And of course, we don't know when the last week will be when we air this program, but it was right after you and Nick had been on about pignology, which was a great show, by the way. I'm really glad you handled that interview, because you knew what you were talking about, and man, you talked about being lost. It would have been a sad, sad show with Cale, but you did a great job, and Nick was a lot of fun to listen to, and thanks again, Nick, if you're listening, for your coupon code that you can find on the FoTime website. But listening to that, the next day I got up and there was an email from a gentleman in California. Please don't ask me to pronounce his last name. But he said, man, I've really been enjoying your podcast. And a member of our club, Nick, was on there with Jeremy this time, and that was really cool. I like your podcast so much, I'm going to put a link to it on our club's website. And I was very flattered by that, because that was one of the, biggest ways of someone shown me, hey, I really like what you're doing, that they wanted to share it with everyone else that they knew. I thought that was really awesome. And even came back with a follow-up email talking about your work that they appreciated on the show, and what you've done on your KF7IJZ YouTube channel regarding solar and battery and whatnot, and even offered himself and others in their club for potential guests and topic hosts. So that was pretty cool as well. But it's been a lot of fun. I never knew that people would want to listen to me talk about ham radio. I just thought it would be fun to try, and I'm still having a lot of fun so far doing it.
Well, that's that's very similar to here with my KF7IJZ, solar amateur radio stuff. I started throwing the content out there because I had an interest to kind of share what I was doing, and I have been overwhelmed by how much it's taken off. And I love the interaction with folks. This week I've had folks from the Philippines and folks from other people in China reach out to me to start asking me questions about things, and that truly is humbling, because I mean, amateur radio is all about talking all over the world. The internet gives us the opportunity to reach the world, and it's kind of cool to have a small little impact. Even if nobody else really cares, at the end of the day, I get the warm and fuzzies from it. So that's it's really cool to be rewarded for getting recognized by folks that were never in your circle, that you expected were your friends and family listening just to be nice for you. So, well,
my friends and family don't listen. Are you kidding?
So
there's a scripture about that,
So at this point, another thing that's kind of interesting about the podcast is you launched right away with a sponsor, and that sponsor was Maine Trading Company. And one thing that's been interesting about watching them as an amateur radio retailer is how quickly they came kind of out of nowhere, but how dedicated they are to the amateur radio community, and how really good some of the deals they have to offer amateurs. Can you talk a little bit more about them?
Oh, absolutely. You could do an entire program on Richard and Christy and their story. And I don't want to steal any of his thunder because he may be a future podcast guest, but I can tell you that I'm trying to find the word to use here, because it's beyond amazing how they got to where they are and what they're doing right now for the amateur community. And I mean, they're making a living at it as well. I'm not going to say that they're just killing it and they're driving Range Rovers and stuff like that, because that's not what's happening. But they have become one of the largest Kenwood retailers and Icon retailers in the nation. Maybe even in the state of Texas, I think they hold both of those brands as the largest retailers for the Kenwood Icon brands. And it's amazing. You're dead on when you say not a lot of podcasts launch with a sponsor. And it's kind of funny, because I thought to myself, well, why not? I mean, of course, you need to go out and prove yourself and make sure you're not like some country women. I am a country redneck kick on the air, but you don't. You want to make sure people can talk and enunciate what they're trying to say, and ask the right questions and be the right kind of host and have the kind of quality that you would want to associate your company with. When I approached Richard and Christy, they had no idea who I was. I had talked to Richard once or twice on the phone, and I'd spent some time ordering a couple of things from them on the phone with them, but they probably didn't know who I was from that. But I just sent them an email and I said, hey, my name's Cale, and I'm going to start a podcast, and I would love to get your company to sponsor me. And before you throw your hands up or start waving red flags, I don't want your money right now. What I want from you is Christy's voice. Christy is a radio professional, or an ex-radio professional, just like I was, and she has a tremendous radio voice, and she's the voice of the FoTime podcast intro and outro. And so we swapped her vocal work that she would get paid for them being my sponsor for a while. And in the midst of that, they have decided to do some really great things for podcast listeners. And they've got 2 packages put together. They've got a really nice deal on a 2-meter base mobile rig through Kenwood, and they got an amazing deal on a Kenwood TS480 power supply G5 RV antenna from Radio Waves. I believe it's a Radio Waves antenna. I don't have it in front of me, but gosh, I wish I did have a TS480 in front of me. That would be awesome. But I don't. But I'm not getting that as a sponsorship deal yet. We'll have to talk to Richard about that. He's probably not listening either, so I can say all these things. They are phenomenal people. It's easy for me on the podcast to go spend your money there. They will take care of you. And a mutual friend of ours, Jeremy, on one of the internet forums that we spend a lot of time on, was actually off somewhere away from home with his gear packed up in the back of a Jeep or something, and it fell out of the back of his truck. Somebody found it, took it to a ranger station. The ranger station called, I think, Kenwood. Kenwood wound up calling Maine Trading Company, and Christy and Tammy and the folks there at Maine Trading Company spent like the next week trying to track down the owner of the equipment.
Wow.
Who had bought it, and wound up shipping it. They found where he was supposed to be, so they shipped it to where he was. supposed to be, and he had already left that area and had gone back home. Well, he finally got his gear, but I had never seen or heard of a company go out of their way the way that Main Trading did for this guy. And that right there, that was 2 years ago or so. That let me know right there that they were good quality people. And you know, unless you talk to one of my old girlfriends from back in high school or something, I mean, folks will tell you I'm pretty straight with you. You know, I'm going to shoot straight with you. I can tell you with all the sincerity that's in me that Main Trading Company will take care of you. And I've been really blessed to be able to be a partner with them in the FoTime podcast. They've been great. They just the other day sent me a brand new walkie-talkie to give away on episode 7. And I bought a shoulder mic and a programming cable, so we've got a whole package. And all folks have to do is go to the FoTime website and sign up for the email newsletter to be entered. That's all it takes. And that was a complete gift from the folks at MTC Radio. And like they're not already gifting us every time somebody buys one of these packages from them and saves $40-some-odd. You know, I wish they had like a layaway. Radio Shack used to have layaway, and they don't anymore either. Well, Main Trading Company is awesome, and you can find them. I need to say that I sound like a NASCAR driver now. You can find them online at mtcradio.com.
Yeah, mtcradio.com again. Yeah, that is, they have been a very good company. They have been responsible for a lot of hams being able to find their first radios at good prices. And I know this kind of sounds like we're shilling for them, but I mean, I'm not sponsored by them. My channel's not sponsored by them. But just the things I've seen them do have been really good, and they are the absolute place to go buy Kenwood radios. I know for a fact that at Dayton, there were 2 people in my club who were going to be buying the brand new GPS-enabled Kenwood D710s, and they had planned on buying it from one of the other folks at Dayton, and I sent them the emails from MTC. And they were blown away at the price differences. And I think my club members, and 5 people ended up buying radios because that deal was so good. So
there you go.
A quick shout out to them. And thanking them.
They're hard to beat, man.
It really is. And a thank you to them for what they're doing to make amateur radio accessible to folks. And I'm just going to say, because I bring this up every time it comes up, the Kenwood TS480 I used to own. It had all the options. It had the TCXO. It had the filters, everything, the carry handle. And I sold it to a dear friend, W4EDF, so he could get into HF for his first time. And that's the single biggest regret of my amateur radio career, is letting that radio go.
I'm sure Ed's smiling right now.
Well, it's funny because when he heard me on episode 2, and I brought that up, he said he chuckled because he realized, he's like, wait a minute, he's talking about me.
Yeah, and Ed did a great job on the video the other day about making the antenna as well, the dipole center. I really enjoyed that, by the way. Good job, Ed.
Well, actually, we're going to be having him on the podcast for a future episode as well. He wants to come on and talk about guerrilla antenna making, basically. And as long as I've known Ed, pretty much every time I'm over at his house, we're outside and fooling around with an off-center fed and holding an analyzer and trying different radials. He is, of all the hams I know, he's probably one of the biggest antenna experimenters I've ever seen. And he is a former Coast Guard, and his mastery of knots is just amazing. And how valuable knowing knots is for antenna work is amazing, and that's something he'll talk about in the future. And speaking of future episodes, and you just referred to it, you said you have a giveaway coming up with episode 7. And to remind people, tell us again what you have to do to get signed up for that giveaway.
Well, you simply go to amateurradio15.com, and there's a little box up on the right-hand side that says sign up for our newsletter. And you enter your first name and your email address, and I'm not going to spam you or fill your box full of anything, but it's a newsletter sign-up kind of a deal, and we'll be doing newsletters probably as our new episodes release, but at this time right now we're using it solely for a registration form, if you will, to give away our Oshin HT. And look, well, I don't want an Oshin. If you don't want it, you don't have to take it, man. I've got 2 that have worked great for 4 years. I'll keep it. It's a UV5 Delta. It's a really nice radio, 2-meter 440, and we're going to be giving it away, announcing it on episode 7. So go there now and sign up. And if this is already past episode 7, you've missed it, so sorry. We'll have to see what we can talk talk to fine folks at MTC Radio to give away again.
So, all right, let's talk some dates. It's August 7th, Thursday, August 7th today. Next week is episode 6. So, what do you know the date off the top of your head for episode 7?
It looks like episode 6 should hit on the 12th. Episode 7 should be August the 26th.
All right, so that puts some pressure on me that I got to get this processed and uploaded to YouTube as fast as possible, so folks have a chance to get over there.
Well, it's not a UKITS, and it's not a TM281 or a 2900 anything. It's a nice 2-meter 440 walkie-talkie that I used one as my first rig for gosh, the first 6 or 8 months that I was licensed. It was my man portable, my vehicle portable, and my base station radio. So I've been pleased with them, and I was tickled when she sent us one to give away on the program.
Well, speaking of future episodes, what are some of the other episodes that may be coming down the future? What are some other topics that we can expect to see throughout the rest of the year?
Well, Ed Cope is sitting over in the desert of Afghanistan right now, waiting for me to Skype him to chat about his work with his KX3 iPad, his latest pigtail. I think he just got in the mail this week. And we're going to talk to Ed via Skype from Afghanistan and talk about his JT65 work. One of my Elmers here in town, I had a request for a CW program, or Morse code, if you don't know what CW is. But anyway, we're going to talk about one of those. We're going to have an episode about CW. And I'm not really sure how that's going to go, but it should be interesting. That the gentleman that we're going to speak with his name's Larry, and Larry is an Elmer of mine. His call is NN4SS, and he has been doing Morse code for probably close to 50 years, a contester and whatnot. Very knowledgeable. So we're going to talk about what is, how do you do it, what do you need to do it, kind of a thing. We also have is it WG0 Alpha Tango? I believe you're working with the GOAT SOTA guy. Is that correct?
Yep. I will be interviewing Steve next week for a future episode.
Yeah. And in the same vein, episode 7 will be an SOTA SOTA episode with Doug from Washington State. And like I said, I'm working on it now. That's number 6. Sorry. Number 6 is Doug, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I was doing post-production today and took out a bad joke that I made in the editing. It was horrible, so I just decided it had to go. But yeah, I'd like to do a digital mode show. I would like to find a good host. I have approached a couple of folks who have all said thanks, but nah, I'm just not a guy that likes to talk unless I'm chasing DX, and that's okay because not everybody's got a mouth like me. I've been beating on Brick of Lore to do a show about all things Chinese walkie-talkies. Brick is just a fountain of knowledge at Brick of Lore. I think it's .com, and Brick does a great job bringing us all the latest information on the low-cost Chinese HTs. And I'm still working on him. I'm still working on Brick. So if you guys know him, tell him that you want to hear him on the FoTime podcast. I would like to talk some about the emergency communication boxes that a lot of us have and a lot of the reasons that we have them. And I'm not sure how I'll go about doing that, but I built a couple, and mine are pretty bare bones. And I'd like to talk about doing one bare bones because not everybody can go, afford to buy a $200 Gator case. So those are some ideas I've got out there as well. And, I'm always open for someone to share something they're really good at or know a lot about, or an idea that they want to hear someone else talk about or learn through that expression. And I'll take all the calls and all the emails you want to send over at amateurradio15.com.
Well, what's the so amateurradio15.com is the website. What's the email address that you're following? And to give us your Twitter handle and your Facebook also.
Okay, well, the Facebook, I guess it's /FoTime. I think it's FoTime. See, I told you I wasn't a Facebook guy. You can find a link to it on the amateurradio15.com website. The Twitter handle is @FoTime Podcast, all one word. And if you're totally just clueless about what FoTime is, it's FoTime, like you would say go time. Instead, we say FoTime. Long story, don't need to get into it here, but it's it wasn't really supposed to be here. It just kind of happened that way. But at FoTime Podcast is Twitter, and the email address is my first name, Charlie Alpha Lima Echo, Kale, at amateurradio15.com. So it's just my first name, Kale, at amateurradio15.com. And, check that all the time. But would love to hear from you. And I've got to say this too, Jeremy, before we go any further. And I know you feel the same way regarding the viewers of your post on your YouTube channel. When we put this stuff together and get it out for others to partake and to listen to or to watch, and we tell you thank you for being here, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, we really mean it. It's not that we're just, trying to be a suck up, or we're from the deep south so we have good manners. We sincerely appreciate you taking your time to share it with us, because we know we're both fathers, we're both husbands, we know how it is. We know how it is to be pulled in 1,400 different directions at the same time every day. But you're taking some of your time to spend an hour with me on a podcast, to watch Jeremy's videos, half an hour here, 45 minutes there, sometimes 8 or 10 minutes, but you're giving us your time, and we know that you can never replace that time again once it's gone. And when we say thank you, guys, we sincerely appreciate it. And just like I appreciate Jeremy giving me the opportunity to come share about the podcast on his channel, I appreciate you guys watching and listening to this. And on the podcast as well, when we air it there as well, I sincerely appreciate you being a part of what we're doing. We're sharing with you what our hearts are regarding this hobby. And there's still a lot of good left in all of this, and while we want to be able to enjoy it and share it with you as well.
Absolutely, and I like I said, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of be along on this journey with you and contribute where I can. Well, folks, I think that's going to be it today for our conversation with Kale. Again, the website is amateurradio15.com, amateurradio, one word, 15.com. You can also reach it at itsfotime.com. Kale Nelson, K4CDN, founder and master control genius of the FoTime radio podcast. Thanks so much for being here. And folks, I'll say that one of the things that's been really important to us as far as getting content together is, this is a cliche, but this is an amateur radio podcast for hams by hams. And if there's anything you're interested in talking about, anything you're interested in learning more about or want to hear about, or if there's something you feel like you can speak expertly and you have something to say that'd be valuable to other amateurs, please leave a comment in the video below. Shoot me a message on YouTube and let us know, and we'll get in touch with you and see if you may be able to contribute as well. So, Kale, any parting thoughts?
Jeremy, again, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm humbled that so many people have shown interest in what we're doing, and I'm still having fun. I'm not bored. It's not wearing me out, and my wife is still kind of smiling when I go up to the barn to do this. So that's a good sign that we're going to go for a while, and I'm willing and ready to go as long as you guys are wanting to listen and bring topics to us. But 73, and thanks so much for your time.
All right, thanks, Kale, and thanks, as always, folks, for watching or listening, depending on how you look at it. Folks, there's a good chance this will wind up as material over on FoTime as well for those who don't want to try to listen on YouTube. And again, apologize for us being unable to do this as a video, but I will say 73 to everyone. Thanks for watching. Again, this is KF7IJZ.